What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Movement Mindset powered by Station Athletics, episode 5. I'm Chris Hardenberg. This is Joe Pasalacqua. And today we are going to be talking programming. And not in the more natural sense of like sets and reps and this, that, and the other thing. More, how do you go about programming for your gym? So I thought a good title for this episode, maybe someone might think otherwise, is Are you a chef or a line order cook? And what I mean by that is chefs taste what they eat. So for us, if we're writing our own programming, we're writing the programming for our own gym, for our own members. We are taking the classes or testing the workouts. And then line order cooks are people who just pump out processed food. And so those are the gyms that outsource it, pay, whether it's Proven or Mayhem or Invictus, they just follow their affiliate programming and they just throw it out there to their members, whether it's right for them or not.
That's a big problem in the space.
Oh, it happens all the time.
In small group training, it's a big problem.
And
especially in like a CrossFit space or like boutique style gym space. People don't realize how ineffective it can be. There'll be a lot of people that disagree with us on this subject. For sure. You know, a lot of gym owners that we know personally are not like that I know do this. And I guess the best way to put it is if you're writing your own programming based on your clientele base, you're writing it based on what they're doing, what they need to improve on. We just said it a second ago, right? I'm not going to program pistols, single leg squats, for someone that can't even squat to death. Or I'm not going to take a female that is overweight and say, all right, we're going to learn the basics of a rope climb when the only thing that she should be considering working on is how she's going to continue to lose weight and build muscle mass or strength, general strength, to be able to hang on a bar. Right? Like that's the big misconception here.
Right. So why don't we get started on that? So this is something where when Joe started the gym, you were writing the programming and we've kind of built it out from there. This is something you've said for the longest time is you believe really strongly we should always be writing our own programming. So why don't you touch on how you got started with that and then why that's something that we think it's so important.
Right, so like when I first started, so this is a decade ago now, right? Where when I started the first gym in Sparta, the idea was I'm gonna write my own programming. One, really because I couldn't pay for other programming. There was other gyms that were doing it, but a lot of them still didn't, right? It was like a good mix. So I always said, it's like, okay, as I started developing over a few months and you start getting people in the door, you're doing actual progressions with these people based on the things that I felt were relative. So a great example is on Tuesdays, the OGs, when they watch this, they're gonna know on Tuesdays, Joe used to program pull-up progressions, right? And it was every Tuesday for weeks. And the idea was we would do negatives, right, on progressions. I would try to stay away from as much band work as possible because they're trying to build general strength. But then you had people that would actually be able to do pull-ups. You're teaching the kipping piece, whether you're doing strict or the butterfly, whatever the segment of that movement was. But I did that for a rhyme and a reason. Because the audience that I was working with, that's what they were trying to do, right? That was the progression. We do 6-week blocks, right? And that hasn't changed in 9 years. It hasn't changed because we're testing things constantly. So I'm testing things that are relevant to the clientele base in my location at that time. It was one location. So whether we're doing a back squat progression or we're testing a workout and we're doing certain movements to try and improve scores on those movements for basic gym progression, right? So whether it's strength progression, conditioning progression, whatever it is. As we started doing that, now we have another location, we're programming for it. So then Marquand starts helping, right? Brian, like all the staff starts getting involved and we're doing a rotational schedule. We're doing 6-week blocks. What I liked it, every staff member had a different perspective. Or skills that they liked teaching or felt like they were more like important, right? For whatever that is that we're doing. And really just to mix it up so you're not doing the same shit all the time.
Even programming style.
No, exactly. Those programming styles are different. Like someone would be, a great example is some people are more barbell dominant. Right? We're doing a program right now that's very barbell dominant, right? Because that's the stuff he likes, and he's really, really good at teaching that stuff. So there's nothing wrong with that, but you're not going to do that on a regular basis.
For sure. And we just came out of a cycle or two where that wasn't the main focus, right? Where we had more dumbbell, more body weight, things like that. Like John's cycle, one of our coaches at Roseline, who was before that, every Tuesday we were working on strict pulling or strict pressing. So it was like, okay, we're going to build some upper body strength. And now in Alex's program, it's like, cool, what he phrased it as barbell literacy, like, okay, we use the barbell, let's really hammer on positions, and then mix in some bodybuilding to strengthen the muscles so that we can do those things.
Exactly. So the whole concept there was that coaching perspective on a lot of our staff all have competed at a very high level of fitness, whether it was in CrossFit or something else, right? So you have a different perspective of what people like to do and what they think is relevant for people from a progression, okay? As we've developed, we came into some problems. The biggest problem being all the gyms are all different sizes. So we're not gonna take a program that is written in Roseland And it just didn't work in Sparta, and it became an issue.
Sure.
And then we aligned everybody to where the programming was like, hey, you got to keep in mind that the micro gyms that are only 3,000 or 2,500 square feet, they need to be able to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So after we got through the issue of like spacing, right? Of okay, now all the gyms are doing the same programs. And it works in every single space, whether the gym is 10,000 square feet or 2,500 square feet. The last piece was making sure that they understood what we wanted from an outside in, right? So what I mean by that is, this is Chris's responsibility right now, is you spot check every 6-week program. So we're given the program ahead of time, we spot check it, we give feedback, and then the necessary changes are made. The purpose of that is, what if there's not enough scaling options?
Right.
Or what if there's not, and when I say that, I don't just mean scaling down, I mean scaling up as well. Because we have a lot of people that can do muscle ups and do rope climbs and can do pistols, right? And like high level people that are trying to work on high level skills. Because my mindset and your mindset has always been, I want people to progress for the client experience from a micro level, from being able to do ring rows to pull-ups or pull-ups to muscle-ups. Same thing with weightlifting, right? If someone's plateauing at a snatch at 175 pounds, you don't want that person to be not interested anymore in this because of the frustration. Guess what? If someone gets a 5-pound PR every month, they're going to continue to have interest in this.
Yeah. To kind of look at it, the biggest reasons why they're important, and kind of to wrap up what Joe said, is like, we know the ideal client avatar, meaning we know the demos, right? We have an idea. We talk to our general managers what most of the members can do, what they can't do, and we can program around that. Versus I've talked to people, they get, let's say they're programming for Mayhem, they have to do that anyways. I have to adjust the programming for our membership.
So what are you paying for?
Exactly.
Right? You're paying, and they're not cheap, these programs.
No.
What are they, like $200 a month plus?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know.
Right? Whatever the affiliate programs are, even if they're $150, $200, if you have to go in and modify it, what the fuck's the point of doing that?
Right. And then you have limitations on space, so you know the limitations. I mean, we talked about it on a previous podcast where it was like, so if you had gotten, obviously it was years ago, programming for Mayhem, and I keep using them, but it's because they're dominating the space right now. And it's like, okay, I know I can't do a rig movement with wall balls, let's say, in Sparta because it's right on the wall and you had 200 members. It's like, you could have 4 workouts in a week that's like, none of these work logistically, right? And then I have to go in and adjust it anyways. It's easy to adjust on the fly, and if there's any programming questions, and we're gonna get into our process more in depth in a second, we have the doc. So the coach can always look at it, see what the workout is, ask the general manager ahead of time, and the general manager knows, because we have a meeting, what the purpose of the workout is. And if they don't know, they know the programmer and can go directly to them and say, what is the purpose of this? And you have no issues.
Yeah, and that's also why we do the intro video as well, right? To explain what is the purpose of this 6 weeks.
Sure.
Why am I doing the movements and the patterns? Like, why are we doing this?
Yes.
This is what you're supposed to understand about, this is what your outcome is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of why we think it's important for people to program for their own gym. Even though, listen, I get why a gym owner wouldn't do it. They want to save time. But like you said, you have a staff, and most of the staff like to do stuff like this. So
people are in this space because they love it.
Yeah.
They don't like you know what I mean? It's like they're involved in this because they just enjoy the community. They enjoy the outcome. They like the fitness side of it. You know?
And then the second piece is, I think it's important to take class. Now, let's put a disclaimer here, right? Joe has competed at a very high level in CrossFit. I've competed at a slightly lower level, but decently high level in CrossFit.
Chris competed at a high level.
And so,
even though I beat his ass.
Yeah, but when you guys were competing, when I was competing, we weren't taking class, right?
We were following individual programming, but we were also all following the same program.
Right, but we were training in the middle of the day, 2-3 hours a day. And so for someone who's in that realm, and this is honestly like, for those of you that know Marquand, that's what Marquand's doing, right? He's not taking class, and it's not because he doesn't think class is not good, but it's like, if you're competing at a sport at a high level, specifically CrossFit, you have to put in more time than that hour workout.
Because you're doing specific work for a specific outcome. It's no different than anything else, right?
Right.
And I feel like what you're getting to is when you and me and other the staff members, semi-retired or whatever you want to call it, right? We started just taking class.
Yes.
And this is a kind of a new thing over the last 2 years
Yep.
of us actually just taking the class program. It has enhanced our fitness program like 1,000%.
Yeah.
Because now when I take class and I'll text Chris, I'll be like, hey, that fucking sucked.
Yeah.
Like, as in like, I either liked the workout a lot, it hurt, right?
Sure.
Or like, hey, we need to reamp this.
Yeah.
whoever that is, that person, we need to discuss this, this, and this with them.
Yep.
And what it's done is when we have our programming now, when it's done and when you spot check it and we go through it, like our feedback has been relatively good on everything.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. It's like if you're one of those people, so again, I'll use Marquand just because he's one of the best CrossFit athletes in the world, top 100 in the world, and he's still at that level, right? He's not going to do that. Everyone else, like we take class because it's an hour, it's run by a coach, I have someone watching me, cueing and correcting me, and then from a business perspective, I get to see what the members are experiencing for myself.
Correct.
And so like you said, we get to talk back and forth, and it's been really cool. Like Franco at CrossFit Team in East Rutherford, he recently programmed a cycle for us, and for him it was cool to have members from Roseland and Sparta be like, dude, that workout, this, that, or the other thing.
He loved it.
He loved it. And so that allows you to build the community. Listen, if you're an elite athlete, you got to do your thing. But I never understood the coaches that, frankly, were not at an elite level, but still were doing their own thing. It's like, no, take class with the members. Because not for nothing, the members also love seeing you take class.
So me and Chris typically work out together at the 3:30 class.
Yeah, in Sparta.
In Sparta. And when I started doing that, what started to happen? We started getting people on a regular basis that would come work out with us.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking about random members, right? That and the 3:30 class is busy because of it. Because they like seeing the staff members. They like seeing you on Saturdays, right? They like taking class with you because they see it from a totally different perspective of, oh, wow, I'm trying to get my first muscle up, but Chris can do 7 or 10 in a row, right? Like there's always a progression no matter what the level is.
For sure.
And we can say this about anyone, someone who's just starting in a 6-week program all the way up to Marquand who's been to the games.
Yeah.
The guy's still working on progression,
Yeah.
right? That's why I enjoyed and I like and we always will do internal programming because it allows us to control client experience based on fitness progression.
Yes. Now, there's a couple reasons why someone might outsource programming. One is, especially in the beginning, if you have some money, you had none.
Of course.
But if you have some money, you can save time.
Yeah, you can do it. Of course you can. But when you're at that intro level, I still didn't agree with it.
Right.
Because you want the client experience to be better.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That could be one thing. You want to offload this. This program is good enough.
Sure.
In our case, good enough is not good enough.
Right. And then the second thing is like everyone has programming biases or a certain way they like to do it. Real quick, I wanted to outline how we go about doing it to make sure that that's not an issue, right? Like if I was writing programming for every day of every year, that can be really, really hard. Our process is we have 2 programs that we see internally, right? So we have our CrossFit style programming and then our more functional fitness style programming.
On all of our new locations. Just so everyone's aware, the new locations that you'll see is we're no longer the CrossFit style. There's still barbells involved.
Well, it's CrossFit style minus the Olympic lifts.
The complex Olympic lifts. They're still doing barbell movements and et cetera, but it's a little bit different. So we actually have 2 separate programs.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, so internally we have 2 separate programs. Inside of that, like Joe touched on, everything's on a 6-week cycle where there's a focus or a purpose for that 6-week cycle, whether it's to build strength in a certain lift or a certain aspect. And then we have 3 to 5 people rotating every 6 weeks. And so essentially, if I'm an employee, right, and I have to write a cycle, it takes a lot of time.
I mean, you know this. If it takes you 3 hours, you did great.
Right.
Right? That was a speedy program.
But the thing is, like, it's easier to swallow if I have to take, let's call it 5 hours to write a 6-week block of programming, but I only have to do that once every 24 weeks.
Well, that's what was happening, right? Me and Marquand originally were bouncing, and then I had Brian into the mix, and then some more staff members, but that was really what the issue was. And then I think Quan did it by himself for a while.
For a little bit, I think, yeah.
It's exhausting.
It
because
is.
You have to donate so much time to write a good, well-rounded program. We didn't really touch on this. Nothing aggravates me more when I know that gyms just make shit up the night before.
Oh, yeah. And
nothing's more aggravating than that because what's the purpose?
Right.
I'm going to write something that's just going to beat the shit out of you.
Right.
I don't know. There's no rhyme, reason, or anything to it. There's no progression. There's no barbell progression. There's no weight increase progression. There's no skill progression.
Yeah.
What's
so
the point?
Where are we going?
Yeah.
Right. So we rotate 3 to 5 people, and then the process is this, right? So let's say Joe's writing the program. He'll write the 6-week program. We do it in a Google Doc. He'll send it to me, usually 2 to 3 weeks before that cycle starts. Like Joe mentioned a couple times, I then look over literally every workout, every set, every rep, every movement for the 6 weeks, and I'll provide feedback. Our coaches will tell you those emails can be a little lengthy.
And sometimes they don't like the feedback, right? But it's them understanding all we care about is that the clients understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
We're assuming everyone's brand new at this, whether
Sure.
they've been doing it for 10 years or 2 months.
Yeah.
You want the clients to understand what's the purpose of why things are written, what you're doing.
For sure. So I send all the feedback, then the programmer will get back to me and we'll have like a debate, right? So it's like, usually if I send 20 points of feedback, they'll take anywhere between 8 to 14 of them. The other pieces, they might say, no, I don't want to change this and this is why. And then if they give me a good explanation, I'm like, cool, we'll leave it then. So we kind of go back and forth. From there, we schedule a programmers meeting. All the people who are rotating on the cycles, we all meet. Usually it's the general managers. The person who wrote the programming explains the skeleton, the outline. They explain maybe some workouts that might be tough to implement. If there's any logistical issues, we can't do these two movements in the same workout.
And a really common thing is if there's not enough space, instead of doing bar facing over the burpees over a barbell, it's lateral. Right. And they just explain that in that meeting.
Yep. So we go through that in that meeting. I record that meeting. That meeting recording then gets sent out to every general manager so they can give it to their staff. So now the staff knows exactly what to expect for the next 6 weeks. And then we film a 6-week programming explanation video, which we've been really excited about because I honestly don't see any other gyms that do this. Shout out to our media guys, Brandon and Byron.
Brandon's laying on the floor.
He's laying on the floor, making sure we're doing what's supposed to. I don't yell into the microphone. That's really why he's there. But they meet up with the programmer and they film a video on here's what to expect for the next 6 weeks. And then we put it out to the members.
Yeah.
So the members know what to expect.
Oh, and the feedback's been great on that.
Yes.
When did we start doing that? About
a couple months ago, maybe 6 months ago.
Yeah, six to 8 months ago we started doing it. And it was something that I wanted done because it just comes down to this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And a lot of questions get automatically answered in those videos of like, all right, great. And listen, and you'll get some feedback where people are like, oh, I don't want to do, oh, we're snatching, like, oh no, we're doing more burp, like whatever the movement is, but it explains the purpose of it. Like, great example is, shout out to Franco. On his program was open prep. And those workouts were hard. They were very barbells, like limited outside of barbell cycling. But man, how prepared did you feel? We were prepped, right? And it led right into the week of the Open. That's what I want the staff to do. If we have things happening, right? Or like we have a lot of new group of like beginner CrossFit people, right? Out of some of the gyms that are going to these local comps. And it's like, they're understanding like what they're going to be working on in the gym to supplement whatever they're trying to accomplish.
Well, and if I'm a member, they like to be a part of the process in some way, right? Like it's not, hey, I'm a member.
Take their feedback too.
Right, but more so than that, it's like you're walking into the gym and it's like, why are we doing this? And the coach is like, what do you care? Just start squatting, right? Versus, oh no, like they care to actually explain to us why we're doing things.
Yeah, like when John wrote the last program, we progressed on a rep scheme and a percentage rep scheme on back squat. Right? Like when you explain that, it makes sense. Not just, okay, go squat this and we're gonna build to a single in 6 weeks. But okay, well, why are we doing 5s and then 3s and then 2s and then singles but not max out? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the understanding that people need to understand is like strength is a development. It's not just go lift heavy all the time.
For sure. And so that kind of gives you guys an insight where because of the structure that we have, because then the cycle starts, right? We go through that whole process before any member ever sees a workout.
It's a substantial amount of work. For something that's just one tier of the client experience.
But it's super important for us because, in terms of what you're doing with the sets, the reps, the weights, it's your experience in the gym. It's why the people continue to show up. And in order to get results, you have to put that much thought into it. Otherwise, you're leaving so much on the table on not only client results, but also their experience in terms of like, is the programming right for them? Is it not right for them? And so to make sure that it's in line with what we believe, and I said it on a previous podcast that we could put the helmet behind it, is that we need to make sure we go through all these steps and we have the right people to do it. And so that is the full process that we have to make sure it's the right type of programming.
And we'll kind of end on this. The purpose of why we break down something that some people may think is an irrelevant piece, right? And just working out. And how many people have we met that are just like, oh, as long as you follow a program, it's something, you'll get progression. I don't disagree with that, but is it designed properly around what your outcome is supposed to be? Right? So for us, the fitness program is designed around whether someone's trying to build muscle, whether someone's trying to just lose weight, general fitness, health. It's all designed around that, right? And that's why it's so important to compile all this information and to create the most well-rounded program so you have the most people from a percentage-wise that are having, exceptional results over time. Right? And then it equates to why the gyms are busy, why we keep growing, and you know, it just kind of builds.
Yeah, and so I would encourage you, if you're someone who goes to a gym, specifically a micro gym, and you're showing up, you're doing the programming, I'd ask your GM or gym owner, like, what goes into the programming? What goes behind it? Because if it's not the same level of effort, it's something for you to consider. And then if you're a gym owner who's struggling to write your own programming, I would encourage you to follow a process similar to ours, where you're using and leveraging your staff who probably wants to write programming anyways to help make sure you get the best product. So yeah, hopefully you like this idea. You provided some insight on what we do before we ever give a member a fitness program. So we appreciate you guys listening to us. Again, like and subscribe to us on YouTube and Instagram, and we'll see you at the gym.
Peace.
Boom, baby.